Hi, I'm Alan Coughlin, and in this video I'll be talking about finger position, and I'll be sharing a key characteristic of virtuosity. This finger position this is the first of my discoveries. And so the finger position is this. You play the white keys with curved or bent fingers, and the black keys with flat or straight fingers. That is the E equals MC squared of piano playing. It's the binary code, the 1 and 0 of piano playing, and it's the seed from which everything else grows or blossoms. And at the end of the video, I'll be demonstrating this on the piano. I want to move the camera over behind me so you get a better view of my hands, and hopefully you'll stick around to the end of that. I'll be playing the black keys and the white keys to demonstrate how the fingers are bent for the white keys. Bent, I say bent because the thumb on the white keys, it's bent like this, and on the black keys it's straightened out. But before I demonstrate that, I want to share with you that key characteristic of virtuosity. Now, like I said, these finger positions, they facilitate virtuosity. So when you play the keys like I play them in my demonstration, you will be playing with virtuosity, and it will be effective immediately, because in this world there are no delayed effects or deferred results. If you practice this for a month, then you'll start to see changes. No, the changes are instantaneous, and you are going to you're going to experience virtuosity immediately. And it means as well that when you play the keys like I play them, it means your path of discovery is beginning here. And if you're a beginner, it means you have avoided the cage as of now. And if you're studying the piano, it means as of now, the cage door is open. And you just have to look outside and step outside the cage. So I'm going to read 3 paragraphs from Chopin's Sketch for a Method, as is translated in this book. And this will be by way of me sharing a key characteristic of virtuosity. So to begin with, I'm going to read those 3 paragraphs. So, to those who are studying the art of piano playing, I suggest, and this is in brackets, and it's been deleted, because, like I said, this was a sketch, so it has all the corrections and deletions that you'd find in a sketch. So they're included here, which I think is very good. So to those who are studying the art of piano playing, I suggest, and this is in brackets, not just some more or less brilliant and debatable theories, but, and that was deleted, some practical, easy to verify, that was deleted, and simple ideas which I know from experience to be really useful. As art is infinite within the limits of its means, so its teaching should be governed by the same limits in order to give it boundless potential. People have tried out all kinds of methods of learning to play the piano, methods that are tedious and useless and have nothing to do with the study of this instrument. It's like learning, for example, to walk on one's hands in order to, and this was deleted, make an entrance in a salon, to go for a stroll. Eventually one is no longer able to walk properly on one's feet, and not very well on one's hands either. It doesn't teach us how to play the music itself, and music is in italics, nor what one calls difficulties, that was deleted. And the kind of difficulty we are practicing is not the difficulty encountered in good music of the great masters. It's an abstract difficulty, a new genre of acrobatics. So we are not dealing here with infinitely stretching, that was deleted, more or less ingenious theories, but with whatever goes straight to the point and smooths the technical side of the art. This finger position that I'm sharing now, with the fingers bent on the white keys or curved, and flat or straight on the black keys, this goes straight to the point. One of the points I had in mind to say about what makes my my way of playing unique, one of them was that it cuts to the chase, and this is cutting to the chase. You are now going to be playing with virtuosity. And the beginners, you won't realize this, but your need for finger exercises, for all sorts of tricks and gimmicks, playing with the metronome, breaking up passages into rhythms, counting out loud, all these things, you have no need for them. And for the people studying piano, everything you know, or everything you have learned or acquired from now on is of no use to you. Now, these paragraphs are all related to this key characteristic of virtuosity. And one of the things I want to go back to is this sentence: as art is infinite within the limits of its means, so its teaching should be governed by the same limits in order to give it boundless potential. I want to explain that sentence. But first, there's some more information that I want to share in order to introduce this key characteristic of virtuosity. And that is that I've written a novel. And I say that not to try and sell you a novel, and I'll say that you don't need to buy the novel to reap the benefits of these videos. But what happens is I will reference the novel, just like in normal life. I might say, it's like that Simpsons episode. And so I need to put that information out there so I can talk freer. And that's the novel. It's called How to Play the Piano, a novel by Alan Cochrane. So at the beginning of this novel, I have a quote by Søren Kierkegaard, and that comes from his book The Concept of Dread, which came out in 1844. And it goes like this: now the dread of possibility holds him as its prey, until it can deliver him saved into the hands of fate. In no other place does he find repose. He who went through the curriculum of misfortune offered by possibility lost everything, absolutely everything, in a way that no one has lost it in reality. If in this situation he did not behave falsely towards possibility, if he did not attempt to talk around the dread which would save him, then he received everything back again, as in reality no one ever did, even if he received everything tenfold, for the pupil of possibility received infinity. I want to explain that quote. And there are a few terms here that he uses that are necessary to explain, to understand the quote. One, he mentions reality. He mentions dread, possibility, and faith. So, reality, what Kierkegaard refers to reality is the world created by society. It's the world we created. So it's a world of education, of qualifications, of piano lessons, of, YouTube, all that. That's reality. And possibility is the unknown, or nature. It's something that exists outside of reality. it's the unknown that reality avoids, that reality ignores or hopes to block out. Faith is trust. And faith is the only way we can exist in the world of possibility, in the world of the unknown. And the dread of possibility, that's something that we all know, but it's hard to imagine it. But when you're experiencing that dread, it's very real. And I can give an example to explain dread. You could be dread is who we are when faced with the unknown. You could be a piano teacher, and I just want to read this bit again. In no other place does he find repose. He who went through the curriculum of misfortune offered by possibility lost everything, absolutely everything, in a way that no one has lost it in reality. So when you live in reality as a piano teacher, you are not required to lose anything. You will go into a lesson armed with tricks and tips and knowledge, which gives you a feeling of safety, which where you don't feel vulnerable. You know, you go into the lesson and you'll be able to tell the student, play this slowly, work the fingers, break it up into rhythms. Play a little less here, a little more there. Don't, listen. They're all devices that get you off the hook. They get you through the lesson, and you're not forced. You don't lose any of them. You get them all. You get to keep them all, and you get through the lesson, and your student goes off, and you're relieved. But there'll come a point where you have exhausted all your tips and tricks on a student. And let's say that student comes to you and says, I've done everything you said. I've done it all. and I still can't do it. I still can't play. And let's say that student is standing there before you and you can't get away from that student. And you know that student is telling the truth, that they did everything. Those tips and tricks you have, I call it the shopping list. That you've exhausted that shopping list and you've run out of items on that list. You know, in that moment, all you can say to the question, why can't I still not do it? All you can say is, I don't know. And it is in that moment that you're facing possibility. And the dread, you can say it, that you'll experience dread when you're forced into a position where you have to say, I don't know. But it's something that you'll actually experience. It's a state of being, of not knowing. A terrifying state of being that you will be experiencing, that compels you to say, I don't know. And you can turn and run away from that student, which is what Kierkegaard says there. You can behave falsely towards possibility, or you can talk around it. You can say to the student, well, you just weren't disciplined enough, or, you can try and get out of it by placing the blame on the student. But that dread is where you have to say, I don't know. Another instance can be if you've been teaching for a long time and you've had many students go, pass through your tutelage, and you start to notice the same problems cropping up in all your students. And you can wonder, why is that? Why are all my pupils, why do they all experience similar problems? And if you don't talk around the dread, if you don't behave falsely towards possibility, you will not only be saying, I don't know, but you'll experience not knowing. And that can be a terrifying experience. And the more you've invested in knowing, like if you, with a from all outward appearances, have a successful teaching career, the more terrifying that dread is going to be. It's going to hit you hard. And that is the dread. That is an explanation of the dread of the unknown. So this dread, you can talk around it, you can flee from it just like you'll flee from the student. Or this dread is like a magic carpet. It as well transports you into the hands of faith. And faith is how we can exist in the world of possibility. It's the state of being, the only state of being that we can have in that world. And faith is trust. So when Kierkegaard says, in no other place does he find repose, so it's in this world that presents us with dread, with that dread of not knowing, in which we can only exist through faith. Kierkegaard says, in no other place does he find repose. He who went through the curriculum of misfortune offered by possibility lost everything. So when you get to that point, when you're confronted by that student and you not only have to say, but experience, I don't know. At that point, you have lost everything. Your entire shopping list. All those things in reality that are given so much importance, that make you a qualified teacher, they're gone. In that moment, you have absolutely nothing. And it's horrifying, because that dread is who you are in the face of possibility. And that is nothing. You are nothing. And that is, being nothing is it's a terrible thing to be. And reality doesn't force us to be nothing. There is another saying from the Bible that is very essentially the same, and that's, it is easier for a camel to pass through the eye of a needle than it is for a rich man to enter the kingdom of heaven. And my dad told me recently that apparently they translated camel wrong, and the real translation is thick rope. So it's easier to pass thick rope through the eye of a needle than it is for a rich man to enter the kingdom of heaven. And we are all rich men. Reality is all about being a rich man, about having that shopping list. And reality is the cage. And what separates you from your professors, the professionals who do not live in this world of possibility, they are in the cage with you. And what separates them from you is the length of their shopping lists. And you might have 4 items. And these, it's like what I was saying in the introduction about the cage. You might have the hamster wheel and the Rubik's Cube. And they might have 10 items on their shopping list to distract them, and that they can offer to you where you feel you're moving up in the world. You're moving up in reality. And a professional could have, somebody giving a masterclass, or they could have 100 items on their list, and that will look, be really impressive. And so they can pull out items on their list that your professor doesn't have to pull out. But they are in the cage with you. And that's, so you can receive everything tenfold in reality. You can have 100 distractions in the cage, and that will look like a lot, but it looks extremely small to the pupil of possibility who received infinity. And this leads up to a key characteristic of virtuosity, and that is that when you are playing, what you play, especially if it's something simple, it will look and feel like it's the only thing in the world you can possibly play. I will show at the end of the video, I'll play the, E, F sharp, G sharp, A sharp and B to demonstrate the flat fingers. And when you play that with the curved and flat fingers, you are going to feel like your fingers are restricted, that they're not doing what you tell them to do, that they have a mind of their own, that you've lost control, that they're deciding when they should play the next note, not you. And this lack of control, or lack of will, or the lack of ability to decide, this is what becomes of you. This is what you lose when faced with possibility. And so, and this will feel like dread. This will be the dread. And you could say, oh no, I don't like this. This is nothing. You might, and you might take refuge in reality, in what you've learned before, because reality is all about giving you the feeling like you're in control, that you make the decisions. When you think of finger independence, which is a gimmick, it's all about you being in control, deciding on every finger when and how it's meant to play, that everything has been a result of your decision. And when you play with virtuosity, that's what I will demonstrate. You're going to lose. The first thing you'll feel is a loss of control. And that is when you have to begin to observe. And that if you don't behave falsely towards possibility, if you don't talk around the dread, if you don't say, oh no, I don't like this is nothing for me, you are going to start to observe those elements that belong to virtuosity. So that's the key characteristic of virtuosity, that when you are playing, what you play, especially when it's something simple like playing one note after the other, it will feel like the only thing in the world you could possibly play. And that seems like counterintuitive, like a paradox. The complete opposite of what virtuosity is, because virtuosity is all about being able to play anything and everything. And that is what, going back to that sentence, as art is infinite within the limits of its means, so its teaching should be governed by the same limits in order to give it boundless potential. And this would be a point where I'd say ask your professor, so you can compare their answer with mine. And the limits of its means is that characteristic of virtuosity, that when you are playing what you play will feel like the only thing in the world you can possibly play. And that same element exists as it does in playing something simple like my demonstration, or in the most technically demanding passages. And so when Chopin says, so its teaching should be governed by the same limits in order to give it boundless potential, that same limit of not being in control, that should exist in the teaching. And the limits, like I said, and you can ask your professor for their explanation of that sentence, and they could brush over it, and they might say, yes, well, the limits of its means, we have 10 fingers and we're human, and not everything is possible, or there's only these, we don't have all the microtones that exist. We have only these notes, these tones and semitones, and they're the limits of its means. But that is not a sophisticated, that is an answer, but it's not a sophisticated answer. And this characteristic of virtuosity, that when you are playing what you play will feel like the only thing in the world you can play, that is insight. And it's insight that puts you on the right path. Because, in the introduction I talked about, the path of discovery and equating it to an onion with layers, and when you get to a new layer of the onion, new difficulties arise, difficulties you've never encountered before. And when you continue your path of discovery and keep on removing those layers of the onion, there's always going to be new difficulties to solve. And this now comes back, this is relevant to this part of what Chopin said. It doesn't teach us how to play the music itself, nor what one calls difficulties. And the kind of difficulty we are practicing is not the difficulty encountered in good music, the music of the great masters. It's an abstract difficulty, a new genre of acrobatics. When you see me play, you'll probably spot elements of my playing, and you might say, look, you said rotation and all is a gimmick, but I see you rotating there, and when I play, I'll make lots of movements, and you could spot them. But the thing is, all those movements that I make, they spring, they blossom from this core facilitator. And what the approaches do is they notice elements like that, like the rotation. They isolate them, they separate them, and they replicate them. And they turn it into a thing in itself. And that is because they are looking from the outside in to the world of virtuosity. And they're not on the inside looking out. And that's when I say that piano playing is the opposite of virtuosity. It's like the mirror image of virtuosity, what these approaches prescribe. Because they're telling you to add these things to your playing, and that's the opposite. Whereas with this core facilitator, they grow from your playing. And when Chopin talks about, the kind of difficulty we were practicing is not the difficulty encountered in good music. You have got this item that's been replicated, and just as in a mirror image, it is a reflection. It has no depth, it has no layers. So not only are you on the wrong layer of the onion, because what Chopin talks about, the difficulties encountered with good music, it's only when you're through many layers of the onion, close to the heart, do you encounter those difficulties presented by the great masters. And like I said, you only discover the new problems as you remove layers. So those difficulties that Chopin is talking about, they remain hidden until you are at that layer of the onion. And so when they replicate all those elements that grow from the core facilitator, not only are you on the wrong onion, because they've replicated it, they've created something that looks like the onion, but it's not that onion, it's a different onion. Not only are you here encountering, as Chopin says, the endless difficulties, there are no layers. You're never going to peel back any layers because no layers exist. There is no depth, there's no substance to that onion. And so you could spend your life on that onion, counting out loud practicing with the metronome, breaking it up into rhythms, rotating, pinching, doing, all these gimmicks of these methods, and you will never encounter the difficulties. One finds in good music. And if you love great music like Mozart and Beethoven, what a loss that is, never to encounter those difficulties. It's not even not being able to solve them. You will never encounter them, because you don't encounter the problems until you've gone through the layers of the onion. And with difficulties, with problems, come solutions. So what a loss that is. And Chopin says, he dismisses all these approaches for something simple that goes straight to the point and smooths the technical side of the art. And that is this: that your fingers are bent on the white keys, or curved, and flat or straight on the black keys. And I would say this, consider the logic that when the black keys and white keys are on a different level, they're at a different height, what sense does it make that we should have the same finger position for both keys? Is ask yourself what the logic is of having a different finger position for the different keys, for the black and white keys. And as well, I talked in the introduction about oneness with the piano. And this is oneness with the piano. The piano is incomplete without us. And we, being the more complex technology, it is up to us to complete the piano. We cannot not expect the piano to complete us. And if you think of the yin and yang sign, the way it curves. When one curves one way, the other curves with it. And together they make a whole. And that is the same as this. We complete the keys, and together by me having my fingers straight on the black keys and curved on the white keys, I am completing the piano. I am meeting the piano, just as the yin and yang, they curve together to meet each other. there was something else I said in the introduction that, Chopin not, I was speculating that Chopin didn't complete his treatise on technique because he had other aspirations. But the other element is that he said everything that needed to be said. And that my idea of guiding you through the world of virtuosity, telling you what virtuosity is actually like, being your guide through this passage, this discovery you are now on, so that you can, I can guide you through that dread and lead you in the hands of fate. That he didn't have that idea, or he had other aspirations, and when he anyway said all he needed that needed to be said, what's the point in continuing? So and what I am presenting is not exactly the same as what Chopin said. But what I have done is I've pinpointed it. Closer. I have what puts you in that world of virtuosity, and that's a big claim. I mean, to be saying that, but that's what I've done. And so at the end of these videos, you are going to be in the hands of fate. And one last thing. There's, about we're all rich men. Because that's what reality makes of us. That's where we find our self-worth. There's, as rich men, you're going to recoil from that sense of loss, of not being in control of your fingers, of not being the one to decide. But there's another level of rich man who will see my demonstration, and they'll look and think, oh yes, very good, or whatever, and they won't even try it. Not once will they just sit down at the piano and try it. So there's that level of rich man. Same with what I said in the last last video on posture, and gave the example of the punch. I mean, there will be people who have watched that and didn't even try it. And it's only through trying you're getting the empirical data that you are experiencing the meaning, the significance of what it is. And rich men do not gather, that do not have those experiences. So if you want to behave properly in the face of possibility, you will experience and you will observe and you will accept the lack of control. Because, I mean, you can't make this up. I am presenting virtuosity, and the first characteristic I say is completely the opposite of, and in all these approaches, you won't hear them say that you lose control. Who would say that? Who would think that? Who would cook up an idea like that? So, and that's it. I'm going to demonstrate. One last thing. I said you don't need to buy my novel. I just want to say that I'm at the same time, I don't want to discourage anybody from buying the novel. The novel is about Devlin Doyle. He gets a one-way ticket to Vienna, and the quote at the start is basically describing Devlin's journey, and he uses everything he has acquired in college, all those tips and tricks. He exhausts them till he finds out the true value of them, and he finds out that they weren't worth nothing. And so when he is faced, at the end of the book, when he is faced with possibility, he doesn't behave falsely towards it, because he has already lost everything. And it is then that he starts making discoveries. So you are now at that point where your path of discovery begins, and so you'll be, Devlin, you'll be experiencing. Devlin is experiencing closer what you'll be experiencing. And in the future videos from now on, I'll be telling you the different elements of virtuosity that you will notice in your playing, and you will come to realize what infinity is actually like. And if you dismiss what I'm saying here, you're not just dismissing this one simple idea. You are overlooking an entire world of virtuosity. And there's just one, this is really the last thing. Just as a warning, in the novel, there's sex. And so if you're not into that, or that's just, and then you probably best not buy it. And also I'll say that there's sex in it that could make your skin crawl, because me and my bright ideas. So that's just a fair warning. So now I'll demonstrate at the piano. I'm going to put the camera on this side so you can see better, and this is so the transition is smoother. Yeah. So the fingers are bent on the white keys. I'll play C, D, E and G up and down with my thumb, my second finger, my third finger and my little finger to show how they're bent. And flat on the black keys. So I'll play E, F sharp, G sharp, A sharp and B with my 5 fingers. And that's it. I'll show you with the left hand. I'll play C, D, E and F with my little finger, my middle finger, my index finger and my thumb. All bent, all bent. And then the E, F sharp, G sharp, A sharp and B. And that's it. You could try to experiment or to experience the difference between the curved fingers on the white keys and flat fingers on the white keys, and vice versa with the black keys. You could try playing a repeated note. You could play the E repeated with the thumb, flat. See what it's like, and then try it bent like that, playing it. You could try the same on a black key. Try it first with a bent finger, a repeated. And then try it with the flat finger, repeated. And I'm sure you'll notice a difference. With the thumb, I'll just play some black keys and white keys so you can see the difference with the thumb. So on the black keys, the thumb is like this. In the next videos, I'll expand more on that and share more characteristics of virtuosity. I'd be very interested to hear in your comments if you've tried it and what your experiences are, and hopefully you'll tune into the next video. And you can experiment play black and white notes as you like and just see what happens. Notice what's going on, and don't be put off by the let your fingers make the decisions. Just go with it. Let them do the thinking for you, and you just observe what happens.